which is physical sensations, emotions, and thoughts. And the R is, what's our relationship to it? Are we pushing it away? Are we kind of hooked by the thoughts and the anxious thoughts? Or can we just sit there and watch it? So that's R is our relationship. And then A, P-E-T-R-A, is, what's our attitude? Are we a victim or are we a hero? And literally in this one acronym, and I for myself, let alone, podcast listeners or people we work with, or maybe this coach, can we just be with what is? Can we have our relationship be welcoming as opposed to pushing away or getting all wound up? And then can we have the attitude of, not a victim?
Hey, welcome back, Transformers. And we here with JP, my good friend JP. We were talking on the other end, and he was teasing me about the Bucks and Giannis, how he wanted to rob him from us. But of course, we know how that story ended. So, JP, why don't you just tell us your full name again? I know I said it on the other side here, but it's always good for the owner of the name to say their name.
Sure. JP Pawliw-Fry.
Outstanding. And, everybody's really struggling. And people really feel like their emotions have really caused a lot of their struggles in their life. For some at this very moment, for some, it's kind of past tense from them. And, maybe these things come up, oftentimes. But so before we get into that, I think it's really good for us to just really get acquainted with you and really know what your transformation journey has been, from, where you are and, and how you're still on that path right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I, like everyone listening, suffers, right? I've got I don't want to say the same challenges because I don't want to invalidate other people's challenges, but I think what's clear in my life is coming to understand that, gosh, there are some challenges that I faced, in different times of my life. And what's clear now, maybe not at the time, is that those were the greatest opportunities of transformation for me. And so, it's now moved into our professional work where, I run an organization. We do quite a bit of research. We survey 40,000 people a month. And one of the research findings is that we have these things called last 8% situations. What is that? That is kind of a more difficult situation than the ones we usually face in the course of a day, a week, a month, maybe in COVID's case, a generation, which is, a difficult relationship or a difficult conversation we need to have, or a difficult decision we need to make, or a difficult task we need to do. And what we found is that those last 8% situations are difficult. And it's easy for us to feel like a victim when they're happening to us. And it can feel like this is happening to me, as opposed to having a bit longer of a view, recognizing that this last 8% situation is happening and it might be happening for me. And that is to say that, we can't change our past, but we can change how we look at it. We can change how we learn from it. And so I think while that's my professional work now, I when I think of all the challenges in my life, of self-doubt at times, of not getting what I think I want, and then looking back with a bit of a longer view, realizing, wow, actually, it felt like failure in the moment, but really that was just a step of learning. And as you say, transformation that brought me to where I am today. And not that I have a perfect life, not at all, but it made me who I am today. And I think that's this, I love your show. And I think this is what's true for everyone listening to your show, is that we all have a shared suffering. The question is, what do we do with it? Right? What's our response to it? Can we use it in a kind of hero or heroine's journey to transform and become our best selves? Or are we going to be victims and blame others and say this is happening to me and be justified maybe, but it's not actually going to help us? So I think, that's why I am so attracted to your show, because I think, you're speaking the truth around transformation is possible for any of us at any time. if we're willing to look at ourselves and be really honest in looking at ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. You really just brought us some real clear insight, and without even telling it all, telling all of the stories. Sometimes we think we wanted to hear every bit of like the fights, the swings, and all of that, and sometimes you don't need to hear that. Sometimes you need to know that, like, yes, these things, people will label them as bad, but really the bad is they are also assets. And that's what I'm kind of hearing from you. These things are assets. These things that happen as I was the caterpillar going into the cocoon, where they became the strengths to help me to make that transformation inside of that cocoon, so I can be able to fly the way I'm flying now. Not saying that, like, while I'm flying, that I'm still experiencing some turbulence along the way.
Yeah. I think that's right on. And I think, Marcus, I think what's true is that we have been taught from an early age to push away those things that are uncomfortable, right? To almost deny them. Mm-hmm. And when we feel stress in our body, let's say, we want to do everything we can to not feel that. And so what do? We, what's pushing away? That could be drinking or drugs or distraction, workaholism, on and on and on. And I think what I've learned, not that I'm perfect, but when I've actually just sat there and welcomed that, whatever it is, while it's present, and this is really the mindfulness practice, but if I can just welcome it in, befriend it in a way, it loses its power. And that's one of the things we do with Olympic athletes and NFL and NBA teams is and U.S. Army, Navy, all these folks under pressure, is that when people feel pressure, so anyone listening right now, when you feel pressure, as opposed to pushing it away, trying not to feel it, welcome it in and just befriend it and bring some mindfulness to it. Be kind of curious about it. And what's incredible is that can transform that moment from, not wanting to feel something to, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but that's all it is. It's not I'm uncomfortable and I'm, racked by drama. And when I say drama, that I don't like the word drama, but more, I'm not racked by, even more suffering, so to speak. I'll tell you a story, and I can't say the gentleman's name, but I coach coaches, and one of the coaches that I've coached in one of the professional leagues, he would get physically sick before every game. And in this league, there's 80 games in the season. Gives you a bit of an idea which league. But anyway, he'd get physically sick, right? And, before I started working with him. And the thing is, he just gets so nervous and anxious before a game. And so he'd physically, vomit. And it's horrible. And at one point he's like, JP, I don't think I want to do this anymore because I'm tired of feeling this. And even for him, and that's a pretty extreme case.
That is. Just
to welcome that, just to say, okay, here's how, and we call it our PET, P-E-T. Mm-hmm. Our P is physical sensations. What are for all the listeners right now, just tune into your body. What are you feeling in your physical, body, physical sensations? And just be curious. And then E is emotions. Okay. So what emotions are we, feeling down, feeling up? Just note it without trying to change it. And then T is thoughts. What are the thoughts in our head, that voice in our head? So, for this individual and for all of our, the work, and, this is all on the podcast, the Last 8% Morning Podcast, but can we just befriend our pet? And what happens is that as we start to change our relationship to it. So in fact, the full acronym is PETRA, P-E-T-R-A. Petra is actually a place in Jordan. It's a very famous ruins, which I've actually been lucky to visit. But, can we just be present with Petra, which is, physical sensations, emotions, and thoughts. And the R is, what's our relationship to it? Are we pushing it away? Are we kind of hooked by the thoughts and the anxious thoughts? Or can we just sit there and watch it? So that's R is our relationship. And then A, P-E-T-R-A is, what's our attitude? Are we a victim or are we a hero? And literally in this one acronym, and I for myself, let alone, podcast listeners or people we work with, or maybe this coach, can we just be with what is with, can we have our relationship be welcoming as opposed to pushing away or getting all wound up? And then can we have the attitude of, not a victim? This isn't happening to me. This is happening for me in some way. And it might not be obvious in the moment. So that to me is kind of what's really helped me on my journey of transformation, is to just to be present with what is, because it is like, this is life. Like, life is not all happiness and positive emotions and pleasure. It's not. And yet we run to pleasure. We move away from pain. And I'm saying, let's just sit in whatever's present.
I think what you have done for the people just in this little exercise here, you gave a real good exercise that brings a lot of how you can be mindful right now and activate that. And then if we go further back earlier, you described the person who is definitely on a path of just making their life and their kids' lives better. But I gotta ask you, there's still people sometimes that don't feel content after doing what they thought they needed to do to make life better. And I definitely have suggested, mindfulness before. Is there anything, outside of mindfulness, or do you feel that there's something else, going on that causes this, this discontentment?
Yeah. So, I mean, we all need to have some direction. And what I mean by that is, like, the way we are as human beings, it fills us to have an aim, a direction, to know where we're going. And so sometimes I think part of your question is, people kind of achieve that, whatever it is they want to achieve, and they're still not happy. They're still discontent. And I think the point is maybe they've got the wrong goals. Right. And in that case, one of the things that we have found, in fact, we've got a really neat course, a free course that actually kind of we're putting on YouTube, and it's going to come up in the next couple of weeks. So, people look for it. But so just Google my name and then look on YouTube, but it's all around goal setting. And what's interesting is that a lot of times people struggle with goals because they're making goals that they think other people would approve of, as opposed to what do they really want. So I think, to answer your question, I think sometimes we might meet our goals, but they're not really our goals. They might be, but they might not be. And so I think that's part of it, number one. Number two, I do think we have to change our belief system, because unfortunately, we think it's in attaining things that will bring us happiness and fulfillment. It's not, right? It's not. And look, easy for me to say because I am privileged, right? I'm a white cisgender male who, was fortunate to have, a decent family. We weren't rich, but, there was some stability there, and it wasn't perfect upbringing. And so that means that, there's certain things that I'm fortunate to have. I still have my suffering, don't get me wrong. But I guess what I'm saying though is, the truth is that if people can look inside and understand what goal matters to me, mm-hmm. Can I be mindful with things as they are without trying to push it away? And, can I change my belief about what does it mean to be happy? It's not about, getting all of these things. Because, even myself, who had like a pretty good upbringing, and, all the things I needed, that didn't mean I was happy necessarily. Happiness comes from really understanding ourselves, being at ease with whatever is present in the moment, doing some purposeful work that gets us excited, like the work you're doing, Marcus, right? Like You're like totally juiced by what you're doing. And that's really inspiring to a lot of people, to me. And so for anyone listening, this is the path, right? Which is understand yourself, know yourself, welcome whatever's present. See yourself as a hero on a journey. And as you say, Marcus, like this is an opportunity for transformation. And it's not about getting things. Like, I mean, unfortunately, marketing of products, in our, in the NBA or NFL, like in all these places that we watch TV, all this marketing that comes at us, it says you're not good enough unless you have this. You need to have that to be happy. It's just not right. right? It's just not right. And so I would say that to your question, if you're feeling discontent, it truly is look inside. And I'll say one other thing actually, because we know this about resilience. We know that some people who've had tough upbringings, we know that maybe the single most important factor in any of us being resilient is one other person, the power of one, we call it, one other relationship. And so I would say, especially this is to all the males who are listening, because we men aren't very good at kind of connecting out with others. We're almost embarrassed. We don't want to admit things aren't great. We're afraid to be vulnerable. And the thing is that hurts us more than it helps us. It really does. For those men or women who reach out and cultivate, it just has to be one good relationship. But relationships, that is such an antidote to many things and helps us be resilient, even in the face of a pandemic or racial injustice or kind of political chaos. So to me, there's a truth that is there, but you have to go and grab it. You got to go find, guides to help you. And, I think again, that's part of your show, which is to let's be a guide. And there's, far greater guides than Marcus and myself out there who can really be helpful to you. And some of it might be religious or spiritual. Some of it might not be. Pick your poison, whatever works for you is the point. But that's the journey we're all on, it seems to me.
I love that. And just to hold it right there on the whole relationship aspect and finding that one and just to shift gears just slightly, but still holding that relationship topic, and that's huge. There's so many people right now that really feel that, they need that one, but there's some people who felt like, they were with that one and maybe COVID kind of changed the dynamics of that one. And they may feel like now, this thing is totally toxic.
Yeah.
And they're not sure why they're still with this person.
Yeah.
And they're finding it very hard to even leave the toxic relationship. Is there any advice with this?
Yeah. Excuse me. That's a great question, Marcus. And, far be it from me to give advice where every situation is different, which is kind of your point. Right. But I'll say this. I think we know deep in our gut what's right. And sometimes fear can keep us in a relationship, I think, which is your point. Yes. And I think it's really important that we kind of really dig deep and get some support outside of that relationship, somebody who we trust, who we feel we can be honest with. I've had either a therapist or a coach really for the last 15 years. And as I like to say to, friends, it's either a coach if my life is going great, and it's a therapist if my life isn't going as great, right? But I've always had someone there who can help me, right? Who can, I started a men's group about 15 years ago, and that helped a lot. Like just to talk about, hey, here's how I'm feeling. Here's how my work's going. Here's how my relationships are going. And honestly, I'd always leave those meetings with so much less weight on my shoulders. And then I could see things differently. And so if anyone is out there struggling in a kind of an intimate relationship, a partner, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, I would say reach out, find someone, who you can talk to, because that can give you perspective. Because sometimes, especially with COVID, which is, we get really insular with this one person. And I think you're right. COVID has shown a lot of people whether this is the right person for them or not, because it's a high pressure situation in a sense. Yeah, so we learn a lot through that, don't we?
We do. And it's really this unsettling feeling and this rage that's kind of trapped inside from just everything that's just happening around us. And before you know it, we are having anniversaries that we didn't really, pay attention to before, that are like, oh man, this is really tapping the nerves here. And so what you suggesting with a therapist, with working with a coach is excellent. I think it's the best advice, and maybe going to a safe place where someone you trust, or even listening to a great podcast, like yours, like mine. I think it's a good starting point to start getting the strength to
Yes.
make a good assessment about where you are in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we coming down to the bottom of the ninth. So so it's time to step up to the bat here and really knock it out the park. Um, but before we get there, you know, you know, you've done some amazing work, and I'm so grateful to have you on board here today. I wish I had you longer. Uh, the the thing we have saw last year, with the pandemic, and I know we're probably just not even like touching the surface with this thing passing. Many people now are like at an all-time high of needing the inspiration, the motivation.
Right.
They need to reverse the stress, and so now people are feeling like maybe my birth now is even it's just a trigger uh, for the trauma. The fact that I'm even existing, or they just tired of the people dying around them, and so to confront death, and it's just horrible. It's horrific. They don't know how to grieve.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about the death and grieving, and birth and life?
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know if I have any real insight. I mean, I'll tell you what I think, but I don't know if I have much insight. In a way, I think we're almost 400,000. I think we almost are 400,000 deaths in the U.S. right now, which is just horrible. And it's bringing us a bit closer to some understanding of, and I think we miss sometimes, but our lives are fragile, and we're not here for a long time. And to me, I think it creates a bit of a sense of urgency to get living, to be honest. Now let's,
Yeah.
I think maybe that's obvious, but I do think, like, for anyone out there, I would say that realization of death is like, okay, we only have so many moments on this earth. Don't waste your moments. That's what I would say. Don't waste your moments. Think, what is it you want to do? Do you want to go back to school and get some education? Well, really set a goal and create a plan for that. Do you want to, be in a relationship with someone? Set a goal, make a plan for that. And all of these goals and plans entail risk. Maybe it's putting yourself out there on a dating site, because some people are afraid to do that. Maybe it's, doing this extra education. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation, a last 8% conversation. That's, to me, the real key. And here's what we know around goal setting is that we sometimes make our goals when we're in a motivated, energized state, which is great, but that's not always our state. We go up and down in the course of a day, a week, a month. And so what I would say for folks is find a real structure. And, one of the things, the reason that we have the Last 8% Morning podcast is so that it's an active podcast. It's a structure. It's a way to create structure in our lives. So the idea is you wake up, and as opposed to looking at your phone, and which only, pumps in bad chemicals, cortisol into our brain, which just causes us to burn out and be less happy, even makes us fat, to be honest. That's part of cortisol's effect. And by the way, it also decreases our immune system. That's what cortisol can do. So as opposed to wake up and look at your phone, what we say is wake up, put your shoes on, put the podcast, earbuds into your ear, and go for a walk. And so the podcast is a 15 to 20 minute walk where I guide you. So if any of the things that I'm saying right now is slightly interesting to you as you're listening, go download the podcast, Last 8% Morning, get up in the morning, get up 15 minutes early. Don't look at your phone first thing, go for a walk. And it integrates three things: movement, going for a walk, mindfulness, walking mindfulness. So, because a lot of times people they struggle with sitting mindfulness. So it's walking mindfulness. And then mental training exercises. So some of the same things like Petra and all these other things that we talk about, we deliver. There's like 100 episodes. So every morning you could wake up and you could do this. And the idea is that at the end, you end up with, like we do, goal setting and gratitude at the end of these morning walks. And what happens is that now you've got a way, it's a structure in your life, because I think it's hard when we're working from home. We're not like, we're kind of stuck. And this, so this to me is one of the things that can be really helpful. And I think what it does, to come back to your question, is it reminds us how precious life is. And that, in a sense, as I like to say, we're all going to die soon. We don't know when soon is, but we're going to die soon. So let's make the most of it. And so that's what this whole kind of Last 8% Morning podcast is about. So it's both some ideas every day, but it's also a way to create structure so you can achieve your goals, so you can create the kind of life you want to have and not live with regret.
You know what? I'm sold out on that now. So, I think I'm going to add that, into my own routine now. Just taking that walk in the morning. I usually reserve my walks for the afternoon, but I may switch it up now.
Well, you know what's funny, Marcus, my son, he said, Dad, you've totally misbranded this podcast. I'm like, pardon? He said, well, when we look at when people use it, a lot of people use it in the morning, but a lot of people use it during the day. He said, by calling it morning, it might make people think they can only do it in the morning. So just so you know, Marcus, you can actually listen to it later in the day too. And that's what some people do, of course. But anyway, for me though, I find it's helpful because if I look at my phone first thing, honestly, I just start to get like, I look at politics of what's going on and it drives me crazy what's going on in Washington. And I feel really upset about that. Or I see an email or a text, I'm like, and all of a sudden, like, I'm cortisol in my brain, and that's not good. It's the stress hormone cortisol. So instead I put on my shoes and I go for a walk. In fact, you're going to laugh at me. I sometimes listen to my own podcast as a way to just build structure into my own day.
That's good. Hey, like, you'll be surprised the amount of information and motivation you can get from just hearing some of the the episodes you have done in the past. Because like some of that stuff comes back to help you.
It does
when you need it most.
It's true.
It's brilliant. So you kind of gave us where we can find the podcast. We know you got the New York Times bestselling book out there. We can find that still. That's still available on Amazon or anywhere else. Books are sold. The name of that book again. Tell us what the name of that book again.
Yeah, it's called Performing Under Pressure, and it's available on Amazon and many countries, I understand. So it's still available. Yep.
Yeah, and then far as following you on social media, they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a funny name, JP Pawliw-Fry. But the Last 8% Project is where we have a Facebook page and group. You've got to apply to get into the group, but we let most people in, but we just want people who are committed to doing the work. And then, like I said, we've got this YouTube channel that's going to be coming very soon in the next couple of weeks. So I want people to look for that. And you can just Google my name, JP Pawliw-Fry, PAWLIW -Fry, FRY. And so those are probably the best ways to kind of follow me.
Brilliant. Well, we're definitely going to stay connected with you, JP. Really appreciate you, my friend. Feel free to stop by anytime.
Thank you.
When COVID's over with, once we got the studio back open, love to sit with you in person.
Maybe when the Raptors come and kick the Bucks ass, excuse my language.
Yep. Maybe invite you to the game. We sit down.
I hate to say it, the Bucks are way ahead of the Raptors this year. So
we way ahead.
I'm going to eat my words, I think.
You're gonna have to. Yeah, so I'm typically a season ticket holder. So this year, I held out. I said, oh man, we're not gonna be in that arena this year. So
yeah, true. Hey.
So once we back in the arena again, I'll be there. So
awesome.
I had to invite you down for a game and tease you. So hey.
I'm all in.
All right. So it's been good. Everybody. Thank you guys for joining us on this wonderful conversation. Make sure you check out my buddy JP and all that he's offering. And, we will see you on the other side here for some more goodies.
Wonderful. Thanks, Marcus. And to everyone, don't want to wish you good luck. I want to wish you two things, not good luck, but good preparation and good courage. Have a wonderful year.
Brilliant. I wish what I was getting ready to tell you right now was a scare tactic, but you know what? It's no joke. In fact, I talk about it all the time on shows like the God Pill Wisdom Show and Jay Moore Tech Talk Show, our partner show. Government and bad actors are around the corner waiting to steal your data, or at least be nosy about it. I almost lost my life because I was unknowingly participating in fraud. I didn't even know it. 2 life sentences I was looking at. But now I stand firmly against anything like it. This is why my tip of the day for you is to hook up with a company that can protect you and give you all type of solutions. This nuisance approached us, a veteran-owned company. Woo, who would have knew? Former military, they got the insight. They know how to do it. They know how to serve you. Hook up with them right now. Tell them that I sent you.